So PayPal is at $40 right now, down 31% this year, down 47% over the past 12 months. And if you zoom out to the all-time high, we're talking like 90% from the top. Absolutely crazy. This is a company that used to be worth over $300 billion. Now it's sitting at $38 billion. That's less than some random biotech companies that haven't even launched a product yet. And the wild part, the market is treating like this is done. Like PayPal had its run, it's over, and now it's slowly fading into irrelevance. Analysts are slashing price targets left and right. A recent analyst just cut theirs from $61 to $42. That's a 31% haircut in one research note. Even Reddit went from kind of neutral in the stock to full-on bearish in like the last 2 weeks. So what actually happened to PayPal? Is this some sort of massive overreaction where we're about to see one of the greatest comeback stories in fintech? Or is PayPal actually finished? By the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how every single competitor, I'm talking about Stripe, Zelle, Klarna, Apple Pay, took a piece of PayPal's empire while they watched. So let's break it down. Let's start with February 3rd. That's when it kind of all fell apart. PayPal dropped their Q4 earnings and they just missed like literally everything. Revenue came in at $8.68 billion. Wall Street wanted $8.80 billion. Earnings per share, $1.23. Consensus was $1.31. They missed on both the top and bottom line during the fourth quarter, during the holiday shopping season when most people are buying gifts and booking flights and doing Black Friday deals and all that other stuff. Payment companies are supposed to like crush Q4, and PayPal just pretty much just got crushed. But honestly, the miss wasn't even the worst part. It was the guidance. Management pretty much came out and said, hey, for the rest of the year, our profit's going to suck and decline, and we might or maybe not grow a little bit. They're really not sure. And Wall Street had them actually penciled in for 8% earnings growth. So the street hears that and they're like, wait, you have no growth? You might actually shrink? Like, what the hell? Revenue growth for the year, 3 to 4%. That's a stall. That's not a growth company. That's a company threading water. And then they said transaction margins are going to decline in Q1 and probably for the full year. That means even if volume goes up a little, they're making less money per transaction. And they're pretty much saying margins are compressing. And that right there is probably the worst thing a payments company can actually say. So stock, well, it dropped 20% that day if you've been following. And just to really hammer how serious this was, the board fired the CEO on the same day they reported earnings. Like, they didn't even wait a week. They were like, yo, get out, you're done. So Alex Chris had been CEO for like 2.5 years. He talked a big game about AI, reinventing checkout, about turning PayPal into an operating system for commerce. And the board basically said his execution wasn't good enough and the pace of change was too slow. Pretty much the translation was, we gave you 2 years, the stock's gone 50%, you didn't deliver, peace. So Enrique takes over. He was the CEO of HP. He's a cost cutter. He's an operations guy. He delivered like 6 straight quarters of revenue growth at HP before stepping down. So they didn't bring in some visionary product genius. They brought in a guy you call when the house is on fire and you need someone to stop the bleeding and just execute the basics. That right there tells you exactly what the board thinks is wrong. They don't think PayPal needs another big idea. They think it needs discipline and focus and someone who can hit quarterly numbers without making excuses. But here's the thing, and this is where it kind of gets really interesting. It's not clear anyone can actually fix this because the problems aren't just, oh, we need better execution. Problems are structural. They're everywhere, and some of them might just be unfixable. So let me walk you through exactly who's winning the wars PayPal is losing. Let's start with the merchant battle, the fight for who processes payments on websites and apps. This used to be PayPal's domain. If you were an online business in the early 2010s, you integrated PayPal. It was like default. It was trusted. It was literally everywhere. It was global. And then all of a sudden, Stripe showed up. And we at StockSharks, we use Stripe. Stripe launched in 2010 with this radically simple pitch. 7 lines of code and you can accept payments. No complicated integration, no dealing with banks directly, just clean APIs, great documentation, and it worked. Developers loved it, startups loved it, and within a few years, Stripe became the payment processor for basically every modern internet company out there. So Shopify, Lyft, Instacart, DoorDash, Substack, OpenAI, StockSharks. Pretty much if it's a tech company launched in 2015, it probably runs on Stripe. Stripe is now valued at $70 billion privately and processed over $1 trillion in payment volume in 2023. They're not just winning, they're actually defining what modern payment infrastructure looks like. And if you look on the enterprise side, that's where Adyen take over. Adyen is the payment processor for Uber, Microsoft, eBay, Spotify, and McDonald's. They offer one global integration that works across every payment method in every country. You integrate once, you're done. PayPal tried to compete with them on enterprise deals, and they pretty much just got smoked. And here's the crazy part. PayPal actually could have partnered with these companies. Stripe and Adyen don't compete with the PayPal button. They compete with PayPal's payment processing infrastructure. PayPal could have been like, yo, Stripe, you handle the back end processing. We'll keep the consumer facing PayPal button as a checkout option. Instead, they tried to fight them, and obviously they lost. David Marcus, former PayPal president, ran Messenger at Facebook, built the DM crypto project. He came out publicly after the earnings report and said PayPal fumbled the most valuable thing they had, which was the two-sided network of consumers and merchants. He said they tried to compete with everyone instead of leveraging the network. That's a brutal takedown from someone who actually used to run the place. And it's not just Stripe and Adyen. Square, now called Block, took the small business and point of sale market. They got that little white square reader in every coffee shop, food truck, and local retailer. PayPal has a POS product, and I don't mean piece of shit. Well, maybe, but nobody uses it. Block owns that space completely. So on the merchant side, PayPal went from being the dominant player to being one option among many, and often not the preferred one. Now let's talk about the consumer side. This is where Apple Pay and Google Pay just destroyed PayPal's relevance. Think about the last time you checked out online or in a store. If you're an iPhone, you probably just double click the side button, Face ID, scan your face, and boom, payment's done. 1 second, no login, no typing, no remembering passwords. Apple Pay is just there. It's native, it's frictionless. Same thing with Google Pay on Android. One tap, boom, payment done. PayPal, on the other hand, requires you to have an account. You have to remember your login. You have to then link a bank account or card. You have to trust a third-party company with your payment information. And for the generation of consumers who grew up with biometric payments baked into their phones, this thing feels ancient. It feels like an extra step. It feels like 2012. And here's the kicker. Apple Pay and Google Pay don't charge consumers anything. They take a tiny cut from the merchant, but to the user, it's seamless and free. PayPal charges fees for certain transactions. I'm talking about like instant transfers, international payments, currency conversion. So not only is PayPal slower and shittier, it's also sometimes more expensive. Apple Pay processes over $6 trillion in transactions and has been growing like crazy. Google Pay is similar. PayPal's total payment volume in 2025 was about $1.53 trillion. So Apple Pay alone is doing 4 times PayPal's volume, and it's just growing faster. So PayPal used to be the innovation. Now it's the legacy option people use when Apple Pay isn't available. All right, hold up. If you're enjoying this breakdown of how PayPal is getting beaten from every angle, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. We do deep dives like this on company stocks, market trends every week. Seriously, this helps us out a lot. We upload like 800 videos only on 2,500 subscribers. Anyways, we appreciate it. We love you. Thank you. And for now, let's get back to the PayPal carnage. So PayPal has a buy now, pay later product called Pay in 4. You split your purchase into 4 interest-free payments. It was doing $20 billion in volume back in 2022 and growing like 140% year over year. BNPL is one of the fastest growing segments in consumer payments. PayPal should have owned this space. They had the brand, they had the merchant relationships, they had the consumers. Instead, they got absolutely destroyed by Klarna and Affirm. And if you don't know, Klarna is the Swedish fintech giant that became the face of BNPL globally. They're integrated with almost 800,000 merchant websites. They did $2.8 billion in revenue in 2024, up 24% year over year. And they positioned themselves as a cool, young, stylish way to pay. They sponsor festivals, they partner with fashion brands, they have celebrity ambassadors. They made the whole BNPL or buy now, pay later feel aspirational. Affirm is the US version. They're the BNPL partner for Amazon. They were Walmart's partner before Walmart switched to Klarna. They've integrated with Shopify, Target, Expedia, Peloton, a bunch of companies. Affirm has also been way more transparent about how their product actually works. No hidden fees, no deferred interest traps. That transparency won them trust with consumers who got burned by credit cards. And PayPal? Well, David Marcus called them out specifically on this. He said PayPal ran a defensive buy now, pay later strategy. They didn't go aggressively. They didn't innovate. They didn't chase big merchant partnerships. They just tried to protect their existing business, and in doing so, they handed the entire market to Klarna and Affirm. Now, PayPal is actually still in the BNPL game, but they're not winning. They're reacting. They're trying to catch up. And in payments, if you're catching up, you've pretty much already lost. Venmo is supposed to be PayPal's crown jewel with younger users. It's the app that made peer-to-peer payments social and fun. Split a dinner, pay your roommate, send your friend $5 for coffee. And Venmo was killing it for a while. The numbers look decent on the surface. Revenue grew like 20% last year to $1.7 billion. Total payment volume grew 12% for the year and 13% in Q4. They got over 100 million accounts, 67 million monthly active users. That sounds great, doesn't it? And you're like, damn, those numbers are good. Yeah, until you see Zelle's numbers. Zelle just reported $1.2 trillion in payment volume last year, up 20%. Venmo did about $329 billion. So Zelle is processing 3.6 times more money than Venmo. And they do it with zero fees, zero marketing budgets, and zero celebrity endorsements. How? Because Zelle is built into your bank account. You don't download an app, you don't create a separate login, you don't link anything. You just open your bank's app, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever. Click send money with Zelle, type in someone's phone number or email, and boom, the money shows up in their account instantly. No fees, no friction. It's pretty much like infrastructure. Like, that's it. Venmo makes you download a separate app, create an account, link a bank account or debit card, and then if you want instant transfers to your bank, you pay a 1.7% fee. Even after all that setup, Venmo's P2P transaction volumes in Q4 only grew 7% year over year. Zelle grew 20%. So what was PayPal's response? They threw money at a big celebrity marketing campaign, the Venmo Everything campaign featuring stars from The White Lotus, just to keep growth in double digits. Zelle doesn't advertise. They don't need to. They're already embedded in 2,100 banks and credit unions covering 99% of US checking accounts. Zelle is literally infrastructure. Venmo is just an app, and in payments, infrastructure is always going to win. And here's the thing that should terrify PayPal. Gen Z, the generation Venmo was built for, is starting to use Zelle more because it's faster, easier, and built into the banking apps they already use. So pretty much with Venmo, it's just not cool anymore.
You know what's cool? You.
Zelle, this is how money moves.
As we talk about all technical and apps and what's going on with it, but let's talk about the economics. Now, layer on top of all of this is the fact that lower and middle income consumers are pulling back on spending, and we all see it. The people who used to spend on PayPal aren't really spending anymore. They're tapped out. Inflation's been sticking around 3%. Real wages haven't gone up. Credit card balances are record highs. Saving rates are definitely down. People are cutting back on discretionary purchases, concerts, flights, electronics, dining out, all the stuff that drives PayPal's volume. PayPal is basically a barometer for consumer spending. When spending is strong, PayPal's volume goes up. When spending contracts, PayPal feels it immediately. And right now, it's pretty much flashing red. And that right there, that's not something a new CEO can fix. That's a macro headwind that hits every payments company. But it hits PayPal way harder because they already lost the high growth merchants to Stripe and Adyen. They're losing the buy now, pay later war to Klarna and Affirm. And they're getting destroyed in peer-to-peer by Zelle. So when the consumer spending pie shrinks, PayPal gets a smaller and smaller slice of a pie that's already getting smaller. That's a death spiral if it continues. So here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part where reasonable people completely disagree, and like half our stock structure members. PayPal is trading at 7.4 times trailing earnings. That's cheap, like big time cheap, for a company doing almost $35 billion in revenue with over 400 million accounts globally and billions in annual free cash flow. For context, Affirm trades at a negative PE because it's still losing money. Block trades at a premium because it's diversified and growing. Visa and MasterCard trade at 25 to 35 times earnings because they're duopolies with pricing power and network effects that print money. PayPal at 7.4x looks like deep value. The bull case is simple. Sentiment is at an absolute rock bottom. The stock is universally hated. The new CEO is going to come in, cut costs, stabilize margins, stop the stupid projects, and focus on profits. If they can just stop the bleeding and show even low single-digit growth, that stock could double or triple from here just on multiple expansion. You don't need a turnaround story. You just need them to not get worse. And there's precedent for this. Microsoft was left for dead in the early 2010s. Everyone said they missed mobile, cloud was going to kill them. They were pretty much a dinosaur. Then Satya Nadella came in, refocused the company on cloud and enterprise, and the stock went up like 10x. Maybe Enrique Lores is PayPal's Satya Nadella, or maybe not. But the bear case is brutal, and honestly, it might be right. The bear case is pretty much this. PayPal is structurally losing relevance. They're not the default anymore. They're not cool. They're not embedded. They're not innovating. They're not winning on any of the major battles in payments. Stripe owns the merchant side. Apple and Google own mobile checkout. Zelle owns P2B. Klarna and Affirm own buy now, pay later. And Block owns small business POS. And the question is, what does PayPal actually own? A legacy button that fewer and fewer people click? A peer-to-peer app that's getting streamlined by a bank consortium? a peer-to-peer app that's getting steamrolled by a company and their banks, and BNPL product that's too late and too boring to actually matter. They're a melting ice cube in a market that's moved on, and no amount of cost cutting fixes that. You can't cut your way to relevance. You can only cut your way to a slow, managed decline where you milk cash flow for a few years and then either get acquired or fade out. I honestly don't know if this is a buy or a stay away. I know a lot of people invested and been holding this one for a while, so I'd love to know your take in the comments. And maybe we're missing something or I'm missing something. I'd love to hear what you think and what you're seeing for the future of PayPal and if there is some type of pivot that they can make. But the one thing I do know is that if you're looking at PayPal right now, you're not betting on the company that dominated the 2010s. You're betting on whether this 67-year-old cost cutter from HP can somehow make this fintech dinosaur relevant again in 2026. Maybe he can. Maybe this is the bottom, and in 2 years we look back and laugh at how cheap it was and go back to video and be like, Shaz, you're an idiot. Maybe he cuts costs, stabilizes margins, buys back a ton of stock, and the multiply re-rates from 7x to 12x. And everyone who bought at $40 doubles their cash. Or maybe this is just the beginning of a long, slow, managed decline where PayPal becomes the next Yahoo or AOL, a brand everyone remembers but nobody uses. Either way, Wall Street has made its call. Analysts are cutting targets, institutions are stuck, retail sentiment is bearish, and the stock is sitting at $40 down 90% from the top. So the question is, are you betting on the comeback or are you watching the spade? And lastly, if you're still here, we thank you for watching this video. Hit the subscribe button. And you're probably in this company or have a position in this company, or you're looking to make one. And if you are, always remember all of our videos, including this one, is just for entertainment and education purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always talk to a professional, always talk to an investment banker, always talk to someone that's licensed before making a decision to invest. And always, always, always do your own due diligence. Don't listen to us. Anyways, guys, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.